I grew up in Ofuoma, in Delta State, in the village of my paternal grandmother, whom I never knew. I did not know my father until, I suspect, I was about 3 to 4 years old, because I can remember some things that occurred while I was still breastfeeding, even though I stopped breastfeeding at an age where I was already conscious of my environment. Welcome back to another episode based on the book Lessons of My Early Life by Dr. Charles Apoki. To get the book, please check the links in the description. You can also get both hard and soft copies on Amazon. Growing up in a paternalistic environment on your maternal grandmother's side was capable of creating a sense of a stranger mentality. However, we were never discriminated against at Ofuoma. My brethren from Ofuoma related to my father as an uncle in Wari. A lot of them stopped over in our home before settling down on their own. Ofuoma is about 6 miles from Ughelli, Delta State, where I currently reside. It was a village then in the 1960s, but it had a primary school. The road was an untarred earth road. The journey from Ughelli to Ofuoma was usually on foot. Most parts of the road were lined with rubber trees or cassava farms. There were council workers then who maintained the roads. They used to drain pools of water into pits they dug by the sides of the earth roads. Sometimes they cut sticks to line potholes. The sticks were placed perpendicular to the length of the road. I still remember that oil exploration had just started in earnest then in the early 1960s. Oil prospecting workers were doing seismographic work, and the search for oil involved echo sounding with explosives. There were very loud explosions reverberating in our forests. These are now the present oil wells around Ofuoma and her environs. I was always fascinated by their Land Rover Jeeps. Another thing I remember about Ofuoma was the way adult males suddenly ran into the bushes because of tax collectors. Once tax collectors were spotted, men either hid under their beds with their wives standing at the doorsteps as if no one was at home, or there were sporadic Usain Bolt sprints into the nearby rubber plantations. The word tax in Urhobo, Osa Uyonwi, means a debt for your head. It was very difficult for me to understand why one had to pay a debt for his own head. One thing my mother's negative comments about my father created in me was the desire to create a better history for myself, distinct from that of the rest of my brothers. Retrospectively, life taught me early to choose your destiny distinct from that of your background. You choose the direction you desire in life. As I have always said, life has taught me to react to prove people wrong by results. Results are products of desires, decisions, choices, and actions. My father had a vocation that is hardly existent in Nigeria today in our cities. To complement his meager income, he built and mended houses made of thatch and laterite. Some had zinc roofing sheets though. I always saw my father mending other people's houses because we lived in the slum or rural area of Wari called Okere, which had predominantly mud houses then. I remember we first lived in a thatch house along Okere Road. When it rained, it leaked. What I remembered most was the tea-colored water from the mixture of thatch and carbon deposited from our cooking on the thatch, washed down by the rain. I was always tempted to drink it, but the leakage was quite irritating then. We usually sat on the floor to eat. The floor was not cemented, and we wore no pants most times, so our bums were exposed to some very wicked ants that could deprive you of the joy of your dinner when they struck. Some other dangerous creatures we dreaded were centipedes. Mosquitoes were the least of our problems. Our toilets were made of buckets. Night soil men came to carry them at night and empty the contents into a van. If the tenants refused to pay, the night soil men would abandon the pails of excrement at the entrance to the compound. You were forced to pay. All the fecal matter collected was emptied at the then outskirts of the town. Throughout the day, big birds hovered over the refuse dump. I wonder whose residence that place could be now. After some time, we moved to Uku Square, somewhere behind Okere Road, near the prison yard. It was behind the old Okere Union School. One of the teachers there was called Tarzan. He was a powerful but gentle giant. He owned a very small canoe and often paddled it with his hands instead of using a paddle. As a child, I admired him deeply and his unusual lifestyle. Looking back now, I realize how easily children absorb what they see around them. The impressions they form in those early years often stay with them for a lifetime. When we moved there, our toilet was simply a space surrounded by old corrugated iron sheets. You used pieces of old newspaper or used cement paper for cleaning afterward. Old pages of the Daily Times newspaper were often preferred because they were softer. Looking back now, those experiences left deep impressions on my mind. Seeing the homes and lives of other families often made me feel a painful sense of inferiority. But over time, that pain taught me something important. It taught me to endure hardship and to ignore insults. It pushed me to focus on where I was going rather than on what I could not immediately change. Instead of blaming others or making excuses, I learned to concentrate on what I could do to change my situation. That determination to overcome my background became a powerful force that continues to drive me even today. If you enjoyed this episode, do not forget to like, subscribe, and share. Remember to check the links in the description to get your copy of Lessons of My Early Life. You can also get both hard and soft copies on Amazon. God bless you.